Hey everyone, it's Gabe here, and today we are going to talk about how you can get into the world of game development. So how can you learn and master game development even if you are just starting out, even if you have no technical knowledge, even if you only have a few hours a week to dedicate. This is what we'll be talking about for the entire lecture today, right? So this is super important stuff. This is a very special lecture, and one of the reasons for that also, besides covering how you can get into the universe of games, learning and mastering game development from scratch under those limitations that I just said, this is also special because today, let me see if I can find it here, my little teaser. Today we will also be opening, where is it? I never know. We will also be opening the Pro Indie Dev community. And I know many people have been eagerly anticipating that and have been sending me emails and messages. Actually, probably have received like hundreds of messages these last days. So if I haven't gotten back to you, I'm sorry. It's just, very difficult to respond to everyone. But, one of the reasons is because we'll be opening the Pro Indie Dev community today. And everyone who wants to get in or is considering the possibility of learning and mastering game development with me through the community, there will be limited spots. So if we run out of spots, we have to close registration. So I'm not sure right now how long it will take, but this is one of the things that I'll be talking on this lecture. Even if you're here just for the community, I highly recommend you watch the entire lecture because it will help you understand the philosophy. It will help you understand the principles that also guide the community. And if you're not here for the community, actually this lecture is a full lecture regardless of that. So I'll be talking about the community at the end. But the core of it is how can you become a part of the universe of games, learning and mastering game development from scratch without a technical background, without, even if you're coming from a different profession with only a few hours a week, all right? Even if you're over 30 years old and all that. And I think this is a super important topic that I think will help many people, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to cover it today, right? So as usual, let's move into my handy whiteboard, and I want to explain a little bit further what we are talking about here, right? So when we say getting into the universe of games, what does this mean? So be a part of the universe of game development. It means you basically just stopping being only an spectator, right? Only looking from the outside, only playing games and always feeling like you wanted to be a part of it but never doing anything about it, right? Not only, looking into the backstage of game development, but actually being a part of these people, among these people who are creating this beautiful art form, right? So this is what I mean, being a part of the universe of game development. Make awesome games, not only making like Pong or Tic-Tac-Toe or some boring game, but how can you actually get into a path that will lead you to make games like the ones you love, right? Like the ones you admire, like the ones that inspire you. So make awesome games like the ones you love. We'll be talking about that. When I say zero experience, you can have zero experience and that's fine. And I want to make this really clear, right? So you don't need to know programming. You don't need to know coding. That's not even what I'm saying. If you are bad, even with Excel, you have trouble, writing down a formula in Excel and having it working, it will still work for you, right? I want to make this incredibly clear because there's so much confusion. People who are afraid they will not be able to learn, they are afraid that it will be, it will require a lot of math skills, and that's just not the case, right? If you're learning and at any point you feel it's too difficult, it's because you are learning it in the wrong way, right? So hopefully with this lecture, I will help you clarify that and understand how you can create your own path in a way where you can learn even if you have zero experience with programming, with all the technical parts and all that. It's, it's easy. Nowadays it's easy. 30 years ago it was not, but nowadays it's possible even without any technical knowledge, right? And finally, few hours a week. How can you do that even if you only have a few hours a week? And I'll describe that a little bit further later into the lecture. But I realized that many of you work, right? Just as I worked before. I managed to jump from my corporate job into making games full time and actually being my profession nowadays. Before that, I only had a few hours a week that I could dedicate, right? And nowadays it's also possible if you optimize how you are using your time. It's possible to do that, and this is one of the things that we'll be discussing as well, right? Because we all have a limited time. We have our attention is basically divided into among several things, and so it's important for us to learn efficiently as well, right? So how can you get into the world of game development, into that beautiful universe and making awesome games like the ones you love? And this is what we will be talking about. But since this is a special lecture, I decided to make a quick recap. So I was thinking back, and if in case you haven't noticed the coincidence, I'm broadcasting this lecture for the first time on February 21 of 2021, and this is our lecture number 21, right? So when I realized that, I said, okay, this is when I'm going to launch the community, and I'll make this also a special lecture, because that coincidence won't happen again anytime soon, right? So I took the opportunity to look back and how many people I have been able to help with this channel since I started broadcasting 5 months ago. It's incredible that we have been here every single week without skipping a single week. We have been here every Sunday teaching professional knowledge that you cannot find anywhere else on the internet. Really, usually the only way you could stumble into this kind of knowledge is if you're friends with big high profile game developers. This is the kind of stuff that we discuss like in big events and all that. But on the internet, it's very difficult to learn this stuff. And I decided it was a good idea to give access to everyone. And I was checking the channel analytics to see how much this has helped people. And I was actually, frankly, amazed. So let me show this to you. In the selected period. So since we started broadcasting in October, we have got 175,000 views, and this is actually a screenshot from yesterday. That's probably more now. So almost 200,000 people who haven't taken benefit of the Pro Indie Dev lectures so far. So before we even go further, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for the audience, for the awesome people who are always in the chat, leaving their energy, their comments, complimenting and helping each other. This is absolutely awesome. It's really great to be creating this group and creating this movement. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to be leading that. And I also want to thank everyone. Once again, this has been very busy lately, like receiving lots of messages. I considered counting, but I realized it would be insane, because it's like comments on the chat, Instagram posts, direct messages, emails. So I don't know exactly, but it's certainly over 1,000 messages that I have received over these 5 months. And if I have not gotten back to you, I really do apologize. It's just that it's so much for me to respond, right? But I just want to thank everyone who's been reaching out, all these 1,000 people who have sent, messages and questions, and that I have been able to help in one way or another, right? So I just wanted to start by, appreciating that. So let's talk about what is the structure that we'll be following in this lecture, right? So I always like to start with that so that you know more or less what to expect as we go through the content, right? So we will start with, and let me paste this so that it's a little bit faster. So we start by talking about getting into game development, coming from a different profession, to give you some context, right? And this is also, even if this is not your situation, also how does it work when you only have a few hours a week, when you don't have any technical background and all that. So we'll start with some context. Then I will talk about the 3 principles for you to learn and master game development quickly, even if you are in this situation, right? And I'll describe that a little bit further. And finally, at the end, I'll be opening the Pro Indie Dev community. So if that's what you're here for, calm down, watch the full lecture, and at the end you have the opportunity to see what it's about, how it works, how much it costs, what you have to do to get in, and all that, right? So we'll be covering that by the end. So let's start with some context, and this is essential for any good teacher to explain why the content is important and how it's relevant, right? So I think this will be particularly helpful to you if you love games, if you have always wanted to be a part of this universe, but for one reason or another you just found yourself doing something completely different, right? So either you like your current job or not, either you feel like a void in working that corporate job or working the thing that you do right now, if it doesn't fulfill you, or maybe even if it does, but you always felt like this itch, right? This desire to be in game development, and for one reason or another you were unable to do that, right? And if that happened, honestly, that's not your fault, right? And I'll explain why in a second. But many people are in this situation, and if you still feel like you want to get into this world, being more than just a spectator, but you don't have a lot of free time and you don't have the technical skills and all that, maybe you are afraid that it's not possible for you, right? And I know this is awful, right? Because you really want to be there. You play games, you love them. Every time you're playing, you're thinking, damn, I wish I was making that. I wish I was on the other side of the screen, if that's possible, right? Or on the other side of the company, in terms of being there and participating and creating and shaping these beautiful worlds and all this beautiful interaction that we have the pleasure of playing nowadays, right? Or maybe you are already making games, but you struggle to make it succeed, and you want to see other people, liking the game and buying the game, and this being sustainable, right? And you are afraid, and that's kind of awful because you don't know if it's even possible, right? So today's lecture, and let me move back because I want to make this so incredibly clear. If you learn nothing else from this lecture, I want you to learn this. It is 100% possible for you to learn and master game development. And I'm smiling here because I think I have probably screamed a little bit too loud. Hopefully nobody's deaf by now. But it is 100% possible for you to learn and master game development. If you learn nothing else, I want you to learn this today, right? And I want to help you by showing you a path that you can follow, right? So you can do this even if you're learning from scratch, even if you have zero technical knowledge, even if you're not even good with computers yet, but you can get good with them over time. You can learn with just a few hours a week, and you can make not only, by the way, if you already have technical skill, if you already have experience, awesome. This will help you even further, right? It will go faster for you. But even if you don't, it's possible, and that's what I want to make clear, right? And it's possible not only to make games, but actually to make awesome games that feel professional, that people like playing, that eventually get similar to the games that we love playing as well, right, as players. And how do I know this is possible? I know this is possible because that's exactly what happened to me, right? So for context, I'll start by telling how I managed to do exactly that, right? So when I was over 30 years old, having a full-time job and got into that position where I can make games for a living, right? So, and maybe the most loyal followers will already have seen this, but I love games since I was little. This is the earliest picture that I could find of myself trying to make games. You can see I was a very mature individual. And this is actually me trying to make games. My brother taught me how to make some really simple games in QBasic. Back then, it was in the early 90s. And I just started, but I never considered this to be a real profession, right? I never considered it what would be possible for me to do this full time. So as happens with most people, when the time came for me to choose a profession, I haven't even considered that possibility. Instead, I just chose something that felt more like, I could making money, having a real job and all that. And this is why I said, if you have always dreamed of making a part of this, but you never, you went to a different career, it's really not your fault, right? Because honestly, a few years back, whose parents would recommend anyone to get into game development, right? It would be insane. And this just didn't happen to me either, right? So instead I got a degree in marketing, which has nothing to do with game development, even though it helps me make stuff that sells nowadays, and even though it helps me help players sell their games. So this, anything that you learn is always useful, right? If you're coming from a completely different career, you'll find like incredible usages and incredible leverages that are only available to you because of your unique background. But this will only become apparent when you get into the battlefield and start doing things, right? When you start making games, you start realizing these things that you bring from your previous profession. However, when I got my degree in marketing, it was not the thing that I liked the most. So I ended up getting into IBM and got a corporate job. And probably 1 month after I was in IBM, I moved into IT and started running projects for IT software deployment. So I have nothing to complain about those times. Actually, I think I have a photo. Let me see if I have this photo right here. But I really liked it being in IBM, and I think it would be incredibly wrong for me to be complaining about that, because it was a good time, right? So I found my picture here. This is about how I look at when I work at IBM. I think I haven't shown this picture before, right? But this is how I look at And it was a good time. I got a good salary. I liked my colleagues. I had friends there. The company was good. And so it was not a problem about the company itself, right? It was about the fact that I was not doing something that I effectively liked, right? Or more like, even if I didn't dislike that, it was more like I really wanted to be a part of games, right? That's something that I always felt very, very clearly. I wanted to be there. I wanted to, I was the kind of the person that was thinking, okay, I don't want to be like 80 years old and I'll be looking back and seeing that I had all these dreams and I wanted to do a lot with my life, but then I never had the courage of doing nothing, right? So this started, consuming me, right? So even though I was getting a good amount of money, I was thinking, man, I don't love this, right? And I will only live once. I have this one freaking opportunity in life, right? And if I want to get into games, man, I'm almost 30 now. Or actually, I'm not even sure. I think I was over 30 or almost 30. And I was like, man, I need to do something about this. And I was thinking, as I was preparing for this lecture, I was thinking about how to explain this feeling, right? Because I don't even think it's necessary, because probably you feel those things as well, right? So I realized it would be kind of hollow and useless for me to try and explain it with words. So instead, I'm going to show you a trailer of what games mean to me, right? Why I care so much about games, and you can see if that's your reason as well, right? And as I show this trailer, which you have probably seen because this is from an old game, I don't want you to think about it. I don't want you to analyze it, rationally. I just want you to feel it, right? Just feel this trailer. Feel the magic, the freaking magic that is possible with video games. This is honestly, this is the most awesome thing ever. So check it out.
You should have acted. They're already here. The Elder Scrolls told of their return. Their defeat was merely a delay. To the time after Oblivion opened. When the Sons of Skyrim would spill their own blood. But no one wanted to believe they even existed. And when the truth finally dawns, it dawns in fire. But there's one they fear. In their tongue, he's Dovahkiin, Dragonborn.
So how awesome is that? And the reason why I decided to show this trailer is because maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but the Elder Scrolls is probably my favorite game series of all times. I have played since the second one, which is Daggerfall. And as a player, as someone who would work like a daytime job and do something that I wasn't really passionate about, and then at night having the opportunity to play something like that, I would always be feeling like, we are so it's strange, right? So I'm 37 now. I'm 37 years old. When I started playing an Atari. And I think we are so privileged, really, to live nowadays, to being alive nowadays, and having the opportunity to see this media, this new thing called video games, evolve from Pong all the way into, Skyrim, and even further, right? Skyrim is already 10 years old. And we have the opportunity to see that happening, this new media, like blossoming in front of us. I'm sorry. I get excited about this stuff, right? So this is really, this is really what I felt back then. Like, I don't want to be the person who is always looking from the outside and not jumping into this opportunity of making this. This is the thing I love, for Christ's sake. So I'm just going to do something about it, right? And then I came to my cousin, who was younger than me, and I said, "Hey, man, let's start making games. Let's start making some games together." I'm still emotional from Skyrim. I'm sorry for that. So what we did was basically every night after I would come back from IBM, we would sit together, and we just didn't know how to start, right? So we want to make games. Now what? Now what the next step, right? So I'm here right now, and I'll be making Skyrim one day or something like that. What happens in the middle? And we had no idea. So because there was no one to tell us better, tell us a more efficient path, we did what most people end up doing, by the way, which is, we started devouring everything we could find on the internet, right? So we started reading articles, we started watching YouTube tutorials, watching talks, and all that. And it's kind of hard because sometimes there's contradictory advice, right? So one person tells you to do one thing, another person tells you to do a different thing, and you lack like the background to know what makes sense for you. But that would not get us, stop it, right? So instead we started just trying, right? We chose a game engine, we started working, every waking hour that we had when I was not at IBM, I was working on that. And let me see if I can find this here. Yeah, so what happened was that, we worked for like 6 months trying to develop this beautiful game idea that we had. And we worked really hard on it. I would even, work on the weekends. I would take my entire vacations on IBM and go to my cousin's house, and we would be working on our game for like 30 days in a row. And 6 months after that, we were nowhere, right? And then 1 year later, we were nowhere. And 2 years later, we were nowhere. And what I mean really is that we were working really hard and trying to learn this stuff and trying to implement everything that we read about, in those articles and tutorials. And the game that we had, even though the vision that we had for the game was awesome, the actual game was incredibly crappy, right? I must be honest and say this, very clearly. It was a very bad game. It was buggy. It didn't play well. It was only a fraction of a game. In fact, it was not like a finished game. We were hoping to build this entire world, this entire beautiful thing, but we only could have like one screen with a few enemies and a few mechanics, and none of them were particularly fun, right? And we were working really hard. I want to make that clear, right? So it was very, very frustrating, as you can imagine, right? So working so hard and having no results whatsoever. So if you asked me back then, and I was probably 30 something, I guess, if you asked me back then, I would say, I don't think it's possible for anyone to be successful in this if you start, that late, if you don't have the technical background and all that, right? But I was lucky, and I didn't realize I was being that lucky back then, but I was lucky that I heard about an initiative. To give you an idea of my level of ignorance, that back then, I honestly thought before that me and my cousin, we were probably the only people in Brazil who were considering making games, right? And so I was quite surprised when I got into that meeting, and there was like this, a lot of developers, a lot of people trying to do exactly the same thing that I was trying to do. And I'm right here, as you can see, without the beard and a little bit fatter, so very difficult to recognize, but that's me. Super happy to be surrounded by other people, right? And when I had this opportunity, you would think that probably would be like super cool, but my immediate reaction was not that good, because what happened was that as I started rising my awareness that this whole scene of other developers existed trying to achieve the same things that I was trying to achieve, I started looking at people who were so much better than me, right? So one specific example that was very frustrating for me back then. So I mentioned I was working for 2 years on a game, and it was less than 10% complete, and it was incredibly crappy, right? And then I never heard of a thing called a game jam before. Maybe you haven't as well, it's not a problem, right? But there's a thing called a game jam, where you are challenged to make an entire game in 48 hours. Maybe sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 3 days, but this one in particular was 48 hours. And I have never participated. And then I saw a guy making a game from scratch without having any idea. He started and he developed the game, all the aspects of the game, like the art, the music, the sound effects, the story, the level design, the programming. He did everything in 48 hours, and he finished a game, and he won an award for that game, and the game was complete, and it was so much better than the thing that me and my cousin were working so hard for 2 years, right? The guy made the game in 48 hours, and in every possible conceivable aspect it was better, and it was complete, and our game sucked in comparison. And this guy actually is in this picture. Am I still sharing? This guy's in this picture. It's this guy right here, who now, happens to be my friend, as well as his wife, Amora. His name is Santo, or Saint. He's actually nowadays a very famous pixel artist. And these two were responsible for the art of Celeste, right? So in case you don't know, the indie hit Celeste, one of the most beautiful platformers of late. He made all of the pixel art, and she designed all of the characters. So when I say it was frustrating, is because I saw someone doing really well something that I was incredibly crappy, and I was working so hard, and I was investing all my dreams in that, right? I was still at IBM. I was still working at IBM, so I was not like risking a lot, but I had been working really hard, right? So after this initial frustration, I decided, like, I was okay. I will not be complaining. And if you have been following that, you know that I'm a very pragmatic person, right? So I try to engineer processes to make things work. So instead of only complaining, that my situation is not like this, not like that, and all that, what I did was I started trying to understand what these professionals, the people who were much better than me, what they did, right? So like how they planned their games, which types of technologies they used, how they thought about the entire process, and all that. And I started, learning from them, just learning. Okay, so actually this guy, when he thinks of a game, he doesn't do like this, he does like that. And turns out everything was like almost the opposite of what I was learning from YouTube, or what I was learning on my own, trying to read every article and talks, and watching random tutorials from random people on YouTube. It was just like the opposite of what these guys were doing, right? So I started doing what they were doing. I started trying to copy them, even if I didn't fully understand everything. And then over time, I started understanding. And it was a complete change. It was a complete change, right? So let me actually see. I think I have, most of you hopefully will have already seen this by now. So this is a show reel. Am I sharing? This is some of the games that I made over the following 2 years after I met these people and started doing the way they were approaching things, right? So we finished a bunch of games, me and my business partner, now business partner, right? My cousin, but then we started taking this more seriously. And we finished a bunch of games. We got awards. We were invited as VIPs to big industry events. We had the opportunity to coach other people. Actually, we earned money, started earning money by making games for other companies as well. So some of these games, they are B2C, which means meant for a final audience. And some of these are B2B games, which means that we made the game and sold to other companies so that they could profit from their game when we get like an advancement in money to do that, right? So we started earning money, at some point more money than I was making at IBM from that work, right? And so we finished a bunch of games. I think actually I have another one here that I think is really cool. Let me see if I can find this from YouTube. What is a mini player? So Darkness revealed. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah, so this is one of the games that we are developing for PlayStation 5 right now. So my studio is developing 2 games for PlayStation 5, probably Xbox Series X and the Nintendo Switch, and obviously PC as well. But this is one of the games that we are developing for those platforms. It's called Darkness Revealed. Right now we are working on a different platformer, and then eventually we'll get back into this one and ship it, right? But this is a game that, you know, if you asked me if I could make a game for PlayStation, you know, back when I was struggling and suffering and had no idea what to do, I would say, man, you can't do that, right? You need to be a big company, or maybe you need to have a degree in game development, and you need to have been born in San Francisco, California, in order to have a real shot. And turns out, you know, those are all excuses, all right? Those are all excuses. It's entirely possible for you to do this as well and to have the same sort of results just by applying the smart principles behind how professionals operate, behind how professionals plan everything they do, right? And part of this is what I teach here every week, right? But there's more than that, and I'm actually going to talk in a second about those 3 principles. But then, you know, just to wrap up the story, so a few years later, actually, you know, after this meeting and we completely changing the types of results that we were getting from game development, actually a couple years later, I left IBM, right? So I left IBM and started working full-time in my games company and developing all this stuff. Most of this stuff actually was when I still had both jobs, but then eventually I started doing this full-time and made even more games and have been on that road since that time, right? And in 2017, we were finalists on a big game industry event. I think it's the biggest in Latin America, and we were one of the finalists. So I was called to, you know, go there and talk a little bit about the game that we were making to know other players and investors and all that. And when I walked among that expo, there's like lots of beginners around me, and I looked at them and I started thinking, man, it's probably so much easier for them right now, right? Because as a professional, I could see all the possibilities and, you know, how it's easy as long as you know what you are supposed to do, right? And so I came back home and I started searching, okay, which kinds of tutorials meant for professionals or meant for people who not only want to be making like tic-tac-toe or Pong, but actually making awesome games, right? That eventually lead into even AAA, the creation of AAA companies, right? What kinds of material are available? And I found out that it is still as confusing as it was back then, right? And if you have been trying to search from the internet, you have probably already realized that, right? It's not that the material is not there. It's just that for every correct information, there's like, you know, 10 or 100 wrong things, you know, like amateurs trying to teach you, people who never made a game in their lives explaining how to make games and all that. So it can be quite overwhelming to understand, you know, where to go and all that. And this is one of the things that motivated me to create Pro Indie Dev, right? So in 2018, actually by the end of this year, I approached several friends from the industry, and at some points I called them and asked them to participate and give talks for this new thing that I was doing called Pro Indie Dev. Several people, like the creators of Super Meat Boy, The Binding of Isaac, you know, Cannabalt, Night in the Woods, Crypt of the Necrodancer, Cadence of Hyrule, you know, very high profile developers who either I happened to be friends with because I had been on the road for 5 years, you know, in the real professional road, or people who I met to the occasion, but we all came together and made the Pro Indie Dev conference. It was quite a success, and I realized that there was a need for that. So ever since I have been working and trying to give back to the community, right? So as I had the chance, you know, I just happened to be lucky to attend to this and start, you know, walking with professionals and seeing what they did, and this changed the results for me. And I realized that most people were trying and going through the same types of problems and didn't have the same opportunity, right? So this is why Pro Indie Dev exists, right? And as I started teaching this stuff, you know, some people think, okay, maybe this worked for Gabriel because whatever reason, right? Because he's friends with people, because he's talented, whatever. But what happens is that back then I wasn't, right? Before I met these people, I wasn't. I learned it from scratch as well. And many of the legendary game developers that made the games that you play now and that you admire, hey, they started from scratch, sometimes even when they were over 30 years old, right? So just to show how anyone can apply these principles and have good results, I have separated one video here that is a game. Actually, this is a store page for a game made by one of my former students, actually someone to whom I gave consulting a couple years ago. It's a really cool game called Before We Leave. It's like a soft, chill strategy game where you basically build like an empire or a city, an exploration community on these beautiful round worlds. And when he got to me, he had a very primary version of this. And I want to make clear that this is the first game he made, right? He basically he got in touch with me early on. He managed to get, I think it was a competition that I made back then, that one of the prizes was to have a consultation with me. And I worked with that guy for maybe a couple meetings. He started applying everything, and he launched his first game. And this that you're seeing right now is his first game ever, right? So people would think it's not possible, or maybe that the game would not be successful, but actually it's a freaking good game because it's based in strong professional principles, right? Well, to the point where it's being sold on the Epic Store. It made them enough money that he, left his job. His wife left her job. They hired another 2 employees, and they have an actual game studio, right? Based on the first game that he made, right? So this is just to show how it's possible for you as well. Just be smart, approach it smartly, and you can have these sorts of results as well. Okay? So let's see if I am still recording. Yes, I am. All right, so this was part number 1. Let me see. I believe it's now time for part number 2, and I'm just going to copy the formatting to make it a little bit prettier because organization is important. And yeah, so all right, so we are going to talk about the 3 principles that you need to master in order for you to be able to do those things as well. Okay, so once again, if you want to be a part of the universe of games, if you want to learn and master game development, even if you have 0 experience, even if you come from a different profession without technical background, only a few hours a week, these 3 principles will help you do just that, right? So take notes because this is important stuff. So number 1, your current skill is not nearly as important or determinant as you think it is, okay? In order for you to be successful or to have the types of results that you want. It's not that it's not important, it's helpful, it's useful, but it's not as important as most people think, okay? So your current skill is not as determinant as you think. So let me show this. I actually have made a couple drawings here that I think will make this easier to understand, right? So don't feel scared of this chart because I'll explain it and you will understand this, okay? So most people, they start learning, right? So this is the skill that they have. This is the skill that they have. They start learning and they start from scratch because guess what? I started from scratch, so my circle was very small when I started. The guy who made the game that made me cry because he was so much better than my game, he also had a very tiny circle at some point, right? Maybe even like 1 year before he made that game. But, I'll explain to you why it's not as determinant as you think. Over time, over the years, you should be increasing your skill, right? But you don't have to have like this huge amount of experience to start making games that are awesome, right? Now, if you do it this way, your game will suck and it will never be finished. And how do I know that? Because that's what happened to me, right? So you pick an engine, like a game engine. I went with ClickTeam Fusion back then, but you could be going with Unity, with Unreal, Game Maker Studio, RPG Maker. There's so many options now, right? But you pick a game engine and you have your skill, and then you think of a game, right? You think of a game that you want to make, using that. And you realize that 10% of the game, a small part of the game, is easy to do, is pleasant to do, and you can, even if you're starting right now, those first 10% will be really, really easy, right? However, at some point, very quickly, you reach a point where everything is very hard, you can't learn the skills properly, the game starts breaking, the game starts becoming really not fun, and all that, low quality, and you realize you will never be able to finish that, right? So this is a formula for disaster, really. And what's happening here is that, the 10% that's easy to do is this part over here plus this part over here, right? So that's a Venn diagram, right? So you conceive a certain game, and then a little part of it is easy to do with the engine that you chose, if you know the engine well enough to know that. And some part of it is because it's the part that you already know how to do, right? All the rest is very, very difficult. So many people think, okay, if I'm just starting out, I can only make tic-tac-toe and Pong and crappy, tiny games that are not inspiring at all. And what I'm here to show you is that you don't need, even though you should be smart about scoping your game, about deciding the size of your game, you can design something that's awesome, that's fun, that's, fully featured, just like this game right here, right? Just this game by Sam, my friend Sam. So you can design something that's big and awesome and cool, even as your first game, as long as you follow this. Instead of trying to develop something like this, you try and develop something like this, right? So comparison. Try to do this movement. You just design your game specifically around the things that you already know, even if you know only a little. And if you know only a little, the other part of the game is in great part made by the engine that you chose, right? So, pick a good engine to make the type of game that you want to be making, all right? And if you do this, what you realize is that 95% of the scope of the game is actually within your skill range. And even if it's stuff that you never did before, it's stuff that the engine is really good at doing very easily, right? And so you can make bigger games, pretty awesome games. And only a tiny part of it is outside of the engine's natural capacity and outside of your skill. So because it's only 5%, you can learn that, right? And it's fun, and this is how you expand your skills, right? So every time you conceive a game like this, you will find yourself being completely unable to do anything. And if you don't know any better, what you end up doing is trying to fix the problem by doing something like this. So making Pong, right? Making a boring tic-tac-toe game, making Hello World or something that's scrappy, right? Something, honestly, that's not what we are here to do, right? We want to make Skyrim one day. We want to make something awesome. We want to make something inspiring, right? Maybe we want to make something like this, at least, right? Something that's not Civilization yet, but it's close, getting close to that, right? Something that's exciting, right? And not this tiny thing. So this is how you fix that. You can make something bigger as long as you are smartly, proactively aligning it with the engine's capabilities and with your current skill, even if it's tiny, all right? And to give you an example of that, actually, these are actual screenshots of the very first games, I'll only be pitching the Pro Indie Dev community at the end, right? But this is a series of screenshots of the very first game that you can make. When you get into the Pro Indie Dev community, this is the first game that you learn to make, and it already looks like this, all right? So, do I have it? Yeah. So this is an actual screenshot of the game the first game that you'll be making ever. If you never did a game before, if you have zero experience, if you don't know what the hell you are doing in front of a computer, this is the first game that you will make, right? And why is this possible? It's possible because it's leveraging on current technology and on professional mindsets that is not available for most people, right? But by planning it correctly, you can already start doing something that's powerful, that's cool, that's great, that's inspiring, all right? So your current skill is not nearly as important as you think. And I want to take notes of a couple, where are my notes? Actually, I think I lost them. I don't know where my notes are. Okay, here it is. So your current skill is not as important, and I want you to take notes of these two takeaways, right? So number one, and I'll even paste it to make it faster. Pick a good engine and learn how to use it, right? This is the first step. You don't need to be worrying about programming, about, I need to go with C#. I need to learn engine X because this one is whatever, right? Pick a good engine, something that's aligned with the types of games that you want to make, something that will empower you to do awesome stuff, right? Understand what that engine is good at, so learn the basics, and we can learn that kind of stuff in a few days. Honestly, in a few days. I'm not saying you don't have to study for years. In a few days, you can get familiar with these types of things, right? Understand what it's good at and put it to work for you, right? Make the engine do a big part of the heavy lifting. Okay, this is the first principle that I wanted to show you. And also, don't be lazy, right? As soon as you start getting some cool results, you can start learning game development, or actually game programming, right? But you learn from that solid base, instead of you trying to, starting with nothing, with hello world, which is, very difficult to be motivated with. You already start with something cool, and then you build up from that place, right? So how can I get, for example, how can I get a game that I made in a couple hours, in a few hours, in just a few weeks? How can I pick this and start improving on it, right? So learning some programming in order to further customize what's happening, right? Maybe making the exploration more fun, maybe making some different enemy behaviors, or a weapon system, a loot system, a leveling system, whatever, a skill tree, whatever you can imagine. As you start expanding your game, expanding your ideas, you can learn gradually programming in order to enable you to do that. But you expand from that solid base, right? So that the game that you have and the kind of stuff that you are doing, can also motivate you to keep making progress, right? And this is how you do it. You get more skilled, you make even bigger, even better games, but you are always leveraging on the power of the engine in order to do that, right? So I gave this example recently. Sid Meier created Civilization. He worked at a cash register company until his 30s. He had no background in game development whatsoever, and he got started, and in a couple years he was making games. He left his job. He turned out to be one of the most legendary game developers alive, right? He made Civilization, for Christ's sake. And that guy did not have a background. Now, I just want to point out that when he did that, it was not as easy as it is today, right? He had to actually learn how to do a bunch of stuff that now, like Unity, for example, just does for you, right? So actually it's easier now. It's much easier to get started, right? So pick a good engine and learn how to use it. If you don't know which engine to go, I recommend Unity because it's very standard. So example, Unity. It's very standard in the industry, and it's very powerful. The ceiling is very, very high, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. And learn game programming, from that solid base. Learn this first, and then learn this gradually as you make bigger and better and more awesome games. All right? So back here, people who are starting to get distracted, I'm talking how you can go and achieve your freaking dream. So pay attention here. I know you're already browsing, you're already in a different tab. Back here, this is important stuff. All right? So being strategic. Part of you stopping being only a spectator, someone who turns on their PlayStation and looks at the game and plays and is amazed, but really doesn't belong to the people, doesn't belong in the backstage. Part of you stopping being a spectator and effectively being a part of the creation of these wonderful things called games. Part of it is you stopping to think like a player and starting to think in terms of what happens behind the curtains, right? Start thinking like a pro, like a professional, right? So let me show you one very practical example right here. So if you have seen this game before, it's called Race and Chase. Race and Chase, not a particularly good looking game that was developed by some random people that nobody knew. And that's how Rockstar started GTA, Grand Theft Auto. That's how the game got started. So this prototype right here. So you may see something like this and think, oh my God, I'll never be able to sell that. This is not the game that I want to make. Be smart and be strategic. Instead of complaining, look at the path that's beyond you, that's in front of you, right? So which specific steps you can smartly strategize around so that you can get where you are right now, even knowing nothing, even having not having any experience, how you can trace a path to get where you want to be, right? And this is, I think, a beautiful example of that, right? So this game ended up being shipped with these graphics, right? So this is the first Grand Theft Auto, right? It's not Grand Theft Auto 5 yet, but it's there. It was released, it made money, it validated the concept, it helped the developers build, the team's skill in making that type of game. It helped them accumulate technology that can be reused, right? So on this game, when they made GTA 2, a big part of the technology was already done, right? They could improve the graphics a little bit, the resolution, what you can do in the game, but they already had this working version of it. And it was not only in their computer, it was actually out there making money and, you know, delivering fun to players, right? Start thinking like a pro, right? Start thinking strategically. You don't want to only be making games like randomly. You want to be making those games in a way where it clearly leads you into making the types of games that you want, right? So this is something that I wanted to show. And this is the first takeaway that I want you to take note of. Number one, remember that everyone that you admire, everyone who made the masterpieces that you love playing, they all started from scratch. They all started without any resources, without knowledge, without experience, without anything, right? Sometimes, like Sid Meier, even, you know, over their 30s, right? So just get started. This is one of the main takeaways. Just take a first step, right? Don't be the kind of person that's always dreaming and thinking that you'll do this someday but never takes action, all right? And number two, you know, don't be putting all that effort in a, you know, dumb way. Be strategic. Learn to think strategically. Ultimately, this is what will take you from humble beginnings, from starting where you start, and have you eventually making bigger games, better games, eventually something like those masterpieces that we were discussing, right? So this is principle number 2. And finally, for principle number 3, if you want to get into the universe of games, learn and master game development in a smart way, you know, in an optimized way that's compatible with you not having a lot of time and all that, don't do it alone, right? So this is the third point that, you know, as I have already shown, made a huge difference for me, right? So where was it? Here it is, right? So the moment when I met these people, I started, you know, having them around me. You don't even need to be like a social person that's surrounded by people and going to parties and events and all that. That's not what I'm saying. These people, I probably only saw them, you know, for example, this couple, the folks who made the graphics for Celeste, I think I only personally met them, you know, in the same physical space, probably like 5 times or 10 times at most. And I have been on this road for several years now, right? But before, you know, besides that, you know, just being on the same groups in Facebook where these people were interacting. And what happens, unfortunately, which is one of the reasons why I created the Pro Indie Dev community, is that these open forums, you know, big Facebook groups or something like that, they have a proportion of like 99% amateurs and hobbyists and people who are just getting into this, right? And then only a few pros. And if you don't know who is very difficult to know which advice to follow. But if you find a way, and you know, being in the Pro Indie Dev community is just one way of doing that. But you can also attend to big, you know, conferences like GDC, for example. But finding a smart way to be surrounded by people who get the types of results that you want to get is one way for you to like learn by osmosis, right? Just by being near them, you start absorbing what they know. You start getting feedback that helps you build the game. We say something here in Brazil, when you have like a piece of lettuce on your teeth and you are smiling and you have that big piece of salad, but you don't know it's there, and you have nobody, when you're doing it alone, you have nobody to let you know, right? So this is why this sucks, and this is the power of, you know, being a part of a broader community, you know. So I mentioned that on my inaugural events at the Pro Indie Dev initiative, I called a bunch of very successful creators, you know, a bunch of my friends, so that it would not only be my knowledge there, but also other professionals' knowledge. And I asked several of them, you know, we are consolidating recommendations for people who are starting from scratch and want to have a really good result. You know, the guy who made Super Meat Boy recommended one thing. The guy that made Thomas Was Alone, a different thing. You know, all those great developers, they all recommended different things. But one thing that all of them said is, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone, right? And, you know, looking back, you know, and remembering this experience, to me, it becomes obvious why, right? But before I did it, you know, if I hadn't been, you know, surprised to find all these people in a room, I would never realize that, right? So this is why I'm telling you right now, so that you don't have to go through the lack of results that I went through before you realize this as well, right? So just being a part of a community that does not have to be the pro indie dev community. It can be anywhere where you get to be surrounded by people who are just as smart as you, just as committed as you, or maybe even better, even maybe more advanced, right? Because that's how you really expedite your learning. So this is how you avoid reinventing the wheel, right? This is how you tap into the collective intelligence of other people. And this is the third principle. So to recap, your current skill is not nearly as important as you think, and you can start making awesome games even from day one. You know, even something like this, actually not, well, like this as well, right? It's entirely possible to do in Unity. But even like this, right? So this thing that we teach at the Pro Indie Dev community, even your first game can look like this as long as you strategize it in a smart way, right? So pick a good engine to learn and learn to use it, learn to use its potential and the parts that make it easy for you, right? So that you can have a bigger game, something that's cool, that's more ambitious, that's more satisfying to develop, even in your beginning, right? So that's number one. And number two, don't get stuck with only doing what the engine does, but actually, learn from there. Start with that solid base and learn from there, and you can start making awesome games even from day one, even without technical experience. Remember that everyone started from scratch, so it's not only you. Don't feel unmotivated. It's possible for you right now, to get started and have cool results as well, just by taking a freaking first step, right? So just do something, just get yourself in movement, because the opportunity is right here. Nowadays it's easier than ever to get started, and everyone started from scratch, right? So there's nothing holding you. And finally, try to do this in a smart way. Actually, not finally, right? Because we still have this, but do this in a smart way, right? Learn to think strategically, so that every step that you take, even if it's relatively small, is one step that will get you closer to making the types of games that you want to be making, right? So remember how Rockstar started. Remember how Sid Meier's Civilization started. Remember how PUBG started, right? So a guy who didn't know how to program, and he just started modifying, the files of a game. He just opened on a notepad and started understanding in real time and started changing. And over time, that resulted in PUBG, one of the most successful, one of the most revolutionary games of recent years, right? So it starts with you, being intelligent about how you approach your own learning and your own planning, all right? And finally, don't be the guy with the lettuce in the teeth and nobody lets them know that, they have it there. Learn from the collective intelligence of a group of people who are just as smart as you, or ideally even more, right? If you have the opportunity to go through the same reality shock that I had when I met people who are so much better than me in game development, and if you can learn from them, this is how you can expedite your results as well, right? And so before we move into the Pro Indie Dev community, just to give you some clear demonstration, maybe you have seen this picture. I sent it over email, right? So this is possible, right? I just want to show that this is possible from a corporate person who has nothing to do with games apart from liking games, into actually being right in the middle of the action, right? So this is one of the guys who created Super Meat Boy. He was showing Super Meat Boy right here, right? This is James Stone, a friend of mine who nowadays works at Unity. He's also an independent developer, and who gave a talk at the Pro Indie Dev conference, right? And we were just hanging and having fun and going to Starbucks together at GDC in San Francisco in 2018. This picture was taken, and it's possible, right? So I was 30 years old here. Here was what, 32? I don't know. Actually, it was a little bit more recent, maybe 35, right? But it's possible for you to make that transition, stop doing something that you don't like, or even if you keep doing that, as your main job, but learn game development. If you feel like you belong into this world, it's possible. It's possible. The opportunity is right there. It's just, just take action. Just take a first step, all right? So I have shown you everything that you need to do, right? So all of these things that will help you get there really, really fast. Now, if instead of only doing this, you want to do this with me, if you want to do this by my side, then right now I'll start talking about how the Pro Indie Dev community will work, right? So where is that nice little logo? Here it is. So what is the Pro Indie Dev community? It is your way into the universe of game development. So it is the most efficient possible way that we could think of, that we could optimize by working really hard for years on this thing. This is the most efficient way where you can learn and master game development, even if you have zero experience, even if you have only a few hours a week to dedicate, and you'll be able to finish your first game, your first 3D game at that, the game that I have shown, in just a few weeks, right? So only by dedicating a few hours for a few weeks, this is the very first thing that you do, right? But you will also not only be doing that, you will also be mastering game development, right? Mastering game programming through a clear path, a easy to follow path, where every step, even if you have zero experience, you don't have to be afraid, because I can guarantee that you'll be capable of doing it, right? And how do I know that? Because, that happened to me, that happened to a bunch of people that I know, and we are actually developing this training in a way where anyone can follow, right? So if you already have skills, it will be awesome because it will be faster, right? But even if you don't, it will only take you a few hours a week for a few weeks, and you have your first completely finished 3D game that you can sell, that you can modify, that you can learn from as a solid base and keep expanding. The possibilities are really endless, right, on what to do with it. You'll be able to do anything you want, anything you can think of, by learning not only what the engine does, but also learning how to customize, how to take stuff from the internet to empower your creation, how to develop your own things, your own code and all that. You learn that from scratch, step by step, in a very easy to follow path. And you learn to make high quality games, right? So I can't reinforce that enough. Not only making tic-tac-toe or Pong, but also making awesome high quality games that inspire players, right? So how is it exactly structured? The Pro Dev community is an yearly membership, meaning that you pay once and you get access for an entire year. Once again, don't worry, for the people who are concerned about price, it will not be $1,000 a month. And I'll get to this part in a second, right? So don't get anxious. But let me tell you what is in the community, right? So, and I think the best way to do that is actually for me to move into the sales page, right? So when I make the link available in a few minutes from now, you get into this page right here, and you can learn everything about how the community works, right? But it's meant for you. I think it's meant for you if you have, if you have always dreamed of making games but have zero experience, technical skills, and don't know where to start. You can be anyone, but if you are into one of these four, and I actually am not sharing my screen either, so let me show this to you. So if you are in one of these four categories, this will be particularly helpful, right? If you have always dreamed of making games but don't have experience, don't know how to get started. If you are busy and you only have a few hours a week to dedicate. If you have a cool vision and you are already trying to develop, but your game's just not as awesome as you hope they would be, and there's something wrong that you're doing, the Pro Dev community will help you achieve that result that you want, right? And if you are already making games but you don't know how to find your audience, or how to make your game more popular, even how to make it make money, then this is the fourth profile. So if you are in one of these four categories, the Pro Dev community is very, very optimized to help you specifically, right? So what does it teach? It helps you become a part of the game development universe by learning and mastering game development, and basically participating in this beautiful art form, right? So you learn how to envision, to develop games, to publish games that amaze players, and you know what it feels like to finally be in the backstage and being the creator, right? Not only playing, not only watching, but actually participating. You also have fun while creating something valuable. And I want to reinforce the part of fun here, because you discover that making games can be even more rewarding than playing games. And this is super cool. I have shown this in the past lecture, right? It's an awesome hobby, but it's also an extra source of cash if you want, and it can even be a doorway into an entirely new career, right? If you want to consider, making games full time, this is also the path that I think you should take. And finally, making your game as awesome as it deserves to be, right? So not only starting games like I did, making crappy games that I couldn't finish when I started, but effectively, finishing them and making them shine with quality and appeal. And there's one thing specifically that's, I don't think there's anywhere, honestly, I don't think there's anywhere in the world where I can do this, where you can do this, except here in the community. And that is to take the path that led to the creation of all the great games that we love, by focusing on a grand vision and approaching it in a smart, realistic way where each step is aligned with your current skills and with your current resources, right? So even if you never made a game before, it will help you learn and start creating awesome games, and at every step, just as I show with GTA and with other games as well, you will accumulate skills, resources, fans as you build your way towards bigger and better games like the ones that inspire us, right? And the reason I said I think Pro Indie Dev is the Pro Indie Dev community is the only place where you can learn it that way, is because I'm not like only a teacher, right? I'm not only like on an university teaching but not having personal experience in the battlefield of game development. I'm actually developing games for many years and developing games professionally, since 2013, you could consider, right? So from everything that I learned all of these years, everything is there in the community, right? So everything is there. Everything that took me years to learn, all of the failures, all of the frustration, all of the wrong paths that I took, everything is laid out in a very clear, very easy to follow path where you get started, you learn, you improve, you strategize so that you are consistently building towards making the types of games that inspire you, all right? So I think this is very unique in the community. And it's actually made of 4 parts. So the first one is an exclusive training that's completely new and that's exclusive to the Pro Indie Dev community, meaning you will not be seeing this anywhere else, where you step by step be taken into developing your first 3D game from scratch, even if you have 0 technical knowledge, right? So this is the best possible way for you to take your first step. You learn Unity in the process, which is a standard engine for developers nowadays, and you can use that base knowledge to learn any engine that you want, right? So the things that you learn here, these types of principles right here, this kind of stuff you learn and you can use to learn any other game engine, any other programming language that you want. The base will be the same, and as part of this process you'll be able to make a game that's already on its own pretty awesome, right? So here are some of the screenshots of that game, and the best part of it is that I can hands down guarantee that you will be able to make this game. I can guarantee you will be able to make this game no matter your current technical expertise. And one of the ways we made sure this would be the case is we are developing the training in a way where my wife, who does not have any technical background and never cared about game development, she will also be making this game by following this training, right? So I'm pretty sure that no matter what your current skill is, you'll be able to have a game just like this, and it will be all your own, and you can do whatever you want with it, right? And this is only, we are only scratching the surface here. This is the thing that you will learn in the first few weeks, right? Just a few hours a week, just for a few weeks, and you have finished a game like this that you can then do whatever you want with it, and you keep expanding if you want, and all that, right? So this is just the first step. The second thing that you have access to is the roadmap to mastery, which is also exclusive to the Pro Indie Dev community, right? You won't be seeing this anywhere else. And this is a series of very specifically curated resources from the internet. So there's thousands and thousands of tutorials and videos and articles, and most of them are not really useful, right? So I have personally filtered with my business partner, who is a professional game programmer, and we have personally filtered, a few specific resources that fit perfectly. So when you're done with this first game, it will just fit perfectly into this second training that will link from the platform, and I'll explain how it works logistically in a second, but it will link perfectly with that, and then with you effectively mastering even game programming, right? It was very expertly curated, and we were very deliberate in making it so that you can make anything you want, even if you're starting from scratch, right? Step by step, it's easy to follow. Anyone can do that, okay? So this is the roadmap to mastery, and this will also be exclusive to the community. Also, you have full access to all of the Pro Indie Dev Live lectures, so you can watch them anytime you want. Any of the lectures, we currently have 21 counting this one, and I'll keep recording them, and they will always be available in the Pro Indie Dev community, in the Pro Indie Dev Live session, right? You master the strategy to create awesome games that feel professional and polished, and dramatically increase your game popularity and sales, right? By applying, the professional mindset that you cannot learn anywhere else. And you avoid the traps that kills game projects, because, those are traps that I have fell on myself, and I can warn you so that you don't do those stupid things, and so your game doesn't fail like the games that I had failing failed basically. And finally, I know many people have been eagerly expecting for this one. We have created a secret Discord server, which is the way for you to really become a part of Pro Indie Dev and really participate and really be in the inner circle, interacting on a daily basis with me, with my business partner, with other professional developers and other people who are learning from the Pro Indie Dev community. So we will all be there. It's closed. It's exclusive to Pro Indie Dev members and some professionals that I may invite. For example, the people who had great results by following some of my past trainings. Like, for example, the guy who made this game. Where is it? So the guy who made this game, one of my past students. So I'll be inviting people like that, high profile people who had great results and that can share and support people who are into the community as well, right? So this is what will be. It will also help you build your team because there's a specific channel for that. There's a virtual workplace in there so that you don't need to work alone. You don't need to learn alone. You can be a part of something that you can just put your headbuds and be learning and be developing your games and eventually listening to music that's going on in the virtual workplace or interacting with other people, showing how your progress is going and all that, right? It's the same as you physically going into a co-working place, but it's a virtual version through Discord. And once again, I don't want to be here forever, so I'm reducing this, right? But there's so much more inside the Discord server that we have created, which is the specifically for the Pro Indie Dev community, right? Then, so I have talked about the 4 things. So make our first 3D game from scratch, roadmap to mastery, full access to everything in the Pro Indie Dev live, oh my God, Pro Indie Dev live lectures, and the secret Discord server. And if you don't know what has been taught in the Pro Indie Dev live lectures, you can come here in the sales page and you see, that we have discussed, how to reach success realistically, how to manage money, how to be productive, avoid procrastinating, solving motivation problems, how to plan your career, how to make money in different ways, how to make money in the B2B market, which is a way where my studio made a lot of money for a long time, right? So how you can do that as well. How to be productive, how to validate if your game idea is good, how to play test your game so that you are not the only person who thinks it's fun, but actually other people think as well. And if you have trouble finding people to test your games, the Discord channel has a specific session to help with that as well, right? So it matches perfectly with what's being taught here. How to code games easily, how to make your game look beautiful, even if you don't have art skills, and we actually have 2 full lectures about that. How to get a job in the game development industry, how is the day-to-day like, and there's so much more to come, right? So I'm still recording these every week, and they will always be available to people who are part of the Pro Indie Dev community, right? Also, should go without saying, but I'll be on your side for this entire adventure. So one of the main benefits is not only doing these things that I'm talking about, that I'm suggesting you to do to get awesome results, but actually having me as your side companion, right? Or as your mentor or as a friend, participating there and working more closely with you in order to help you achieve these results that you want, right? So this is also an important part of it. Getting closer to the pricing point, I mentioned that this would not be $1,000 a month, and I want to explain why I mentioned this number. And it's because, believe it or not, there are places, there are institutions, there are companies that will not teach you like a fraction of what you learn in the Pro Indie Dev community, and it will not give you the results. And I know that because I have a friend and several people, by the way, not only my friend, but several people who end up getting a degree in game development, like go to school, learn that for 4 or 5 years, and end up having to find another job because they are not capable of making professional games, right? And you start making stuff that feels professional based on actual battlefield knowledge, like on day 1 when you get into the Pro Indie Dev community, right? And the reason for that is because, once again, we are not like academics, we're not speculators, not like amateurs. We are people who are in the battlefield, doing the work every day, and we know how the real world battlefield of professional game development is like. And we teach you considering those things that you cannot find even in like an university and all that. And those things can easily cost $1,000 a month, right? Which I know, honestly, So we made it so that if you can afford to go out and have pizza once a month, then you can be in the dev community, right? So if you cannot, once again, it will not be a problem of whether or not you are capable of paying. It will be a problem of whether this is a priority for you or not, because I can guarantee that it's affordable enough. If you can go out and have pizza once a month, then you'll be able to get into the pro indie dev community for an entire year and have all this transformation happening in your life, right? And when I said this is all based in real world professional knowledge, I decided to include, I'm pretty sure that, even a fraction of this, even a fraction of what's being delivered in the community would already be worth much more than what we are charging for it, right? And the reason for that is because I want to make this really accessible and I want to help you transform your life as well, just like I had the opportunity, right? But if that was not enough, I have also decided to include this. So the opportunity for you to learn directly from extremely successful game developers, right? So those are some of the people who helped when I founded Pro Indie Dev, and they contributed with their knowledge and with their expertise and hidden, tricks and secrets and all that. And they contributed in the form of talks and interviews. So I have talked with a bunch of them. Others have recorded, those are, most of these are exclusive to Pro Indie Dev. So you cannot find those talks anywhere else, apart from a few ones, right? But most of these are exclusive, and you will only be able to find those nowadays within the Pro Indie Dev community, because I'm including this as what I believe will be the most insane bonus ever, right? So if this was not making sense yet, for whatever reason, you can get advice from the talk by Edmund Macmillan. He himself will be talking how his career was, what worked for him, what he did that made he launch games like The Binding of Isaac, Super Meat Boy, and other incredibly successful popular games, right? Adam Saltzman, who published At Night in the Woods, James Stone, who I have shown besides me and Tommy Refenis, one of the creators of World of Goo and co-founder of the Indie Fund, Ron Carmel, a great friend of mine. Love this guy. Actually, I think I have another picture of him that I always like to show because it's one of the funniest pictures ever. When I went to San Francisco and we were basically walking Ron's dog, the big bear, big black bear just started licking my face when I was taking the shot. So I always like to show this picture because I think it's so funny. And Ron Carmel is just there also, talking his opinion about what works, what doesn't. Many successful developers. I will not be listing all of them, but you have the opportunity by watching these talks to learn directly from them, directly from extremely successful game developers who have made it and who can contribute with a lot of knowledge. We also have like people who are more like common developers who are also struggling and sharing what is working for them right now, right? So it's not like only the top tier people who are like gods and you don't know how to reach their level, but also more common developers as well that are doing the work that we do every day, and that can share some very practical tips on how they achieve their current results. All right. So what is the cost to get into the Pro Indie Dev community? And I want to say it's not a cost, it's an investment. But if you can afford to go out and have pizza once a month, then you can afford to be in the Pro Indie Dev community. All right. The investment that you'll be making to get access for an entire year is $14.55 per month, right? So over those 12 months, you'll be paying $14.55, or you can pay even less than that if you pay in less installments, right? So this is a smart installments modality where you can basically choose how many installments you want to pay, and the less installments you pay, so if you divide it in only 2 installments, for example, you have like a big discount for doing so. And ultimately, you can have up to 25% discount, which leads to $129 for the entire year within the Pro Indie Dev community, getting into the games industry, getting into the universe of games, learning and mastering game development from scratch all the way into making awesome games like the ones you admire, for $129 for the entire year. So I think that would be already impossible to refuse by that price. So, because this is the first time, let me go full screen for that one. Because this is the first time the first time ever when I'm opening the Pro Indie Dev community, I'll make this even more of a good deal for you. So if you get into the Pro Indie Dev community right now, and I don't know for how long I will keep this promise, but if you get into the community right now as you're watching this video, you'll get, for this price that I have shown, instead of having 1 year of access, you have 2 years. 2 years of full access by the price of one, right? So that's ridiculous, right? So that's basically like $7 a month to be in the best game development community ever created. All right, so if that's not cheap, if that's not a good deal, if you cannot see how amazing a deal that is, honestly, this is not for you, right? And I want to be very clear about that. So let's see what else. Everything we do is covered by a 15 days, no questions asked guarantee, right? Because I'm sure that it will work for you, right? I'm so sure that if you get into the community, you get the results that you want to get, that you can just, just click on the button, make a registration, and actually I'll make the link available in a second, but just click on the button, make a registration, and you can experience the community by yourself, right? So I'm so sure that it will work, that you can go there and watch everything for free. And in 15 days, if for whatever reason you don't want to stay in the community, you can just send me an email and I'll give all of your money back. No questions asked, I will not be hurt. It's fine, right? And I know there will be, people asking me, hey, Gabe, when you do this, won't some people get in and enjoy the whole thing for free for 15 days and just ask for the refund at the last possible day? Yes, some people will do that. I know that. I'm not silly. I'm not stupid, right? However, I don't think that's you, right? Statistically speaking, I don't think that's your case. I think you are watching this to this point because you want to get into the world of professional game development, making awesome games, even as a side gig, even as a hobby, or even as a full profession. You want to learn from the best mentors available. You want to start making your own games. I'm pretty sure, that all this value is something that you really want in your life. And so I'm so sure that you like this thing and that it will help you, that if you get in, all of the risk is on my end, okay? You can just get in. No worries, don't have to think a lot. Just click on the button, go there, and you will, if for whatever reason it doesn't work for you, at least you tried, right? You can just send me an email and you get all of your money back. So now the race will begin. So let me show you the link. So in order to get into the Pro Indie Dev community, go to proindiedev.com/community and you see this page that I have open right here. Let me put the link here as well, right? So just head to proindiedev.com/community. I have explained everything. I don't even think you need to read the sales page, but if you want, everything is there. Just come here and click on one of these buttons, right? So either here or here. If you come here, you also find some commonly asked questions. I will actually answer some of them proactively right now. So the first thing is, and I want to be very clear because I know some people complain later, right? So maybe if you forget of this for a few days, when you try to get into the community, this page will not be available anymore. It will be taken offline. As soon as we reach the number of spots, I'll take it offline. And I don't want anyone to be mad about this. So if you whatever reason you don't buy now and you end up forgetting, and as soon as we reach that number, we have to close, because that's the only way I can guarantee that I will give you proper support, right? This is something that I do in every product and I'll keep doing. I apologize if this hurts some people, but we cannot take more people than I'm capable of supporting myself, right? I'm saying that if you get to the community, you have the opportunity to learn directly from me, right? And from my business partner, from a lot of top professionals, right? So this is not very easy to scale. If I have too many people coming in at the same time, what I have to do is come here and close this page, so it will take you to a like 404 error. You basically will not be able to see this page anymore. It will just show an error probably. And even if you have the link to the checkout, I will also take the checkout offline, because I know some people try to fool me with that, right? So they just come here, click on the button, and it opens like this checkout page right here, and they keep this tab open. But you will not, even if you do that, you will not be able to buy, right? Because I'll take the checkout offline as well, right? So odds are if you leave this open in your computer and when you come back for whatever reason you refresh, the page won't be here anymore, right? As soon as we reach the number of spots that I have available. And once again, if for whatever reason you want to get in but you are unable, you take too long, you don't take action, I apologize in advance. I have to do this so that I can keep providing high quality support and making, really delivering this transformation to the people who do manage to get in. So, to me, it's pretty obvious because I have already tried to register late into a training that I really wanted and it was not available anymore and it sucks, and I tried to get late and I couldn't, right? And I know the feeling is horrible. So if you already know that you want to get in, make a registration now. Worst case scenario, you can ask for a refund later, right? And also we will be taking new members in order of arrival, right? So if you register now, you are in front of someone who tries to register like 100 students later, right? So if you end up taking too long, maybe we'll have to close in the meantime. So if you already know, I suggest you make a registration right now. So common questions: which payment methods are accepted? Credit card and PayPal, right? And depending on the country where you are, there may be different possibilities. If you want to pay installments, actually, let me show you. If you want to pay installments, you just come here, click on the button. It's right here. So you have to type your name. For example, Gabriel Del Santo, gabriel@proindiedev.com. I'll just copy it here. You have to confirm it. Or actually, you can paste it, which makes sense. proindiedev.com. And hopefully this will be in English when you open on your side, or maybe it will be in your local language. When you click next step, we have the payment information here, and here you have the option of paying in installments, right? So this is how it's on the second screen. You come here, you click, and you have the opportunity of paying in up to 12 installments of $14, all right? Or a lump sum of $129 for an entire year, all right? And that's a 25% discount. What else people usually ask? How do you get access to this thing? So we use a platform called Hotmart, which is a very trusted partner. We have worked with them for years. They are awesome. And what it means is that when you finish your registration, you receive an email in your inbox. So make sure it's not in your spam folder or something like that. You find that email, and that will lead you into creating your account into the community, right? So that's a closed members area where you will basically have access to how to get access to the Discord, to a welcome video, where I will explain how it works from the inside. You have access to all of the Pro Indie Dev Live lectures, and as we release the new training, the new exclusive training on how to make our first 3D game from scratch, this will be releasing about every week. Maybe it will take a little bit longer between lessons, depending on if we have to record extra lessons to answer doubts or not. But you make it the best possible training for you to learn from scratch, right? This is already in development. The game itself is already complete, and now you learn how to make that on your end, right? And this will be released at about, probably starting in 1 week from now, as I'm recording this on Saturday/Sunday, depending on the time zone where you are. And part of it, and it will start being released in probably 1 week, and then about every week there will be a new lesson that will help you, all right? But in the meantime, you can already access, all of the Pro Indie Dev Live lectures, and the bonus will get available 15 days after that, right? So that's basically when you confirm that you are really in the community after the trial period. That's when the bonus gets released, okay? Other common questions. All future lectures will be included in the platform as well. The lessons, you don't need to be live to watch them, right? So if you cannot make at the time when I'm putting them online, it's not a problem, right? You can take everything in your own pace. You can watch whenever you want. So it's all here, but it's very easy. As I said, it's extremely optimized for you to be able to take these classes, even if you have a daytime job and only have a few hours a week to dedicate. If for whatever reason you cannot work on your game for maybe 1 month, you can come back and keep watching from where you stopped. The lessons will already be there, all launched, and it's fine, right? So you don't need to be awake at a given time or anything like that, right? At the same time, as you are watching stuff, odds are there will be other people that will be, about at the same part of the training with you, and you can access them on the Discord channel, right? Which you get access to as part of being into the community. These instructions will also be in the members area that you access when you register in Hotmart. All right. Many people ask me this, so I don't know why exactly people ask this, but how many hours of training are there? And I don't think that's relevant because in only a couple hours you can already be making an awesome game like this one, right? In only a few hours. But if you want to explore everything and watch everything immediately, you want to just devour every possible lecture, the amount of stuff that's there right now, I was doing some math here, it's probably over 60 hours of exclusive content, right? So, if you consider the talks and the interviews and the Pro in Dev Live lectures and the exclusive training and all that, it's probably going to be over 60 hours, and it will be increasing probably by another 100 hours by the end of this year, right? If the rhythm of the Pro in Dev Live lectures continue as they are. So every possible thing that you can find, my recommendation is find where it makes sense for you to start. There will be specific instructions within the community to help you decide that, but find the right place for you to start, and watch the other things when it makes sense for you. All right, it will be there, it will be yours. No time pressure, just take your time, just make it work with your life, and you'll be fine. Okay. And I think I covered pretty much everything. So let me just go back to my lecture notes and see if there's anything else that's important for me to talk about. So once again, this is not written in the page yet. Maybe I'll add this. But if you get into the community right now, don't waste time. Right now, go there, click on the freaking button, and you are having 2 years for the price of one, right? So it's not $14 a month, it's $7 a month. It can, honestly, it's impossible. It's impossible for you to say you cannot do this, right? It's a matter of choice. If you want to be there, and another thing that I want to make very clear, important stuff. So as usual, go in full screen for that. I will never, ever, ever offer this by this price for this period of time with all this bonus again. Never. Never, ever, ever, ever. This is the only time in history, I can swear to you, it's the only opportunity you have in history to have access to this whole thing for 2 years with all these bonuses for this price. It will never happen again. Never happen again. All right? And this is as a way to thank you for supporting Pro Indie Dev since the very first class of the Pro Indie Dev community, right? So we have helped lots of people with the FGJS training, but the Pro Indie Dev community we are opening right now. And if you get into this first class, as a way to say thank you for this, I'm making this ridiculously cheap for you. Only this time. The next time, if I open Pro Indie Dev community again in several months, I don't know when it will be, if it happens, but it will not be for this price for 2 years. I can guarantee that, okay? So this is the one-time opportunity for you to get into the Pro Indie Dev community by the cheapest possible price and be in there, making your awesome games, learning how to get into the industry, how to make games like the ones you love, not tic-tac-toe, not Pong, not something that you don't like, but actually making something awesome for 2 years and really making this transformation in your life for this price. This will be the only time ever when I want to be very clear, because I know that the next time when I open, maybe, I don't know when it will be, there will be people who will be complaining, right? So just to make it clear, this will be a one-time opportunity to get access to the whole thing for 2 years. All right, so this is one of the things that I wanted to make sure I covered. And also, I think this should be obvious, but, once again, I have already wanted to be a part of something. If this is important for you, be smart. Just take the step, right? I have been in the position where I knew that I wanted to do something about a problem. In case in point, we want to be in the world of game development. You have always dreamed of being there and participating in the creation of this beautiful art form, and you know that you need that, but for whatever reason you start going to another tab, or you think you leave this open and then you come back later and complete your purchase. Don't do that, right? Because I have wanted to get into trainings, into very exclusive opportunities like this one, and for whatever reason I have forgotten, and I deeply regret and I wish I was capable of going back in time just to, you know, if you already know, just go there and do it, right? Even if you end up taking the refund later, it's fine. But don't miss the opportunity, because this is a one-time thing, okay? So to make it very, very easy for you, what are the steps? What are the steps? And we have already covered. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to come to this link right here. So open your browser, type proindiedev.com/community. Depending on when you're watching this, the link will also be on the chat here, right here, or it will be below in the description, depending on when you're watching this. But just head to proindiedev.com/community, and you get into this landing page where you can, you know, it's saying the same stuff that I have already mentioned, but if for whatever reason you want to read it, just come here and read it. Just click on this button. I want to become a part of it. It's here, and it's also down below. It's the same thing. You just click it. It will lead you to the checkout page in Hotmart, which is very, you know, a very safe environment that I have worked for years with. You type your name, you type your email, you choose your option in terms of installments on the next screen, and then you just confirm. You will receive an email from Hotmart. Make sure it's not in your spam folder, right? So you receive an email from Hotmart, and it will give you the link to go there and create your access into the Pro Indie Dev community, into the members area. There you'll find the welcome video, you'll find all the instructions to get access to the Discord. You will already have access to everything that was in the Pro Indie Dev lectures. A few days later, you start getting the training to make your first 3D game from scratch. This one, so start receiving the exclusive lessons. And a few days later, you also receive access to all of the talks that were given, you know, by me and by these very successful friends on how you can be successful as a game developer as well. All right. So if you already know that this is what you want, don't lose any more time. Once again, I will be taking people in order of arrival. So don't procrastinate, because maybe the next time you think about this, it will be already closed. All right. So go to Pro Indie Dev. It's here this time. Go to proindiedev.com/community. Click on the green button to become a part of it. And, you know, if you end up not getting into the community for any reason, don't worry, I'll still be posting, you know, cool stuff on Instagram that you can learn something from. You can keep watching the Pro Indie Dev live lectures every Sunday. Once again, you have to watch them on the following week, because then they become exclusive for the community. But, you know, you will still be seeing my face, all right? Don't worry about that. I'll just probably rest a little bit, because it's been an incredibly hectic period of time for me. But, you know, we'll still be friends, and it's fine, right? And you'll still be seeing me eventually. Now, if you get into the community, if you do get into the community, then we'll work closely together. We'll start making your dream come true. I'll teach everything that I know, everything that I wish someone taught me, the way I wish someone taught me when I was starting, right? And the opportunity is here right now. So go to proindiedev.com/community, click on the green button, make a registration, follow the instructions that you receive in your email from Hotmart, and I'll be waiting for you to be working for you. It will be my pleasure to help you through this beautiful journey that is making games, making awesome games like the ones you love. All right, so I really want you to be a part of it. Here's my invitation. I hope you are capable of taking advantage of it. All right, so for everyone else who does not get, I'll probably see you next Sunday. For everyone who gets into the community, I'm super excited to getting started, right? So this movement is starting right now. I know that in probably just a few hours, the Discord will be full of people, and I'm super excited to start this thing, right? So I'm very excited for it. I hope you are as well, and I will be waiting for you on the other side. proindiedev.com/community, make a registration, and I'm waiting for you.